For this part of the healthcare marketing executive course, we're going to take a look at a 30,000 foot view of what marketing is. And it might almost sound remedial to be discussing what is marketing, but I've actually found that there is a lot of confusion around what marketing is supposed to be. Is it eyeballs? Are we trying to drive awareness and impressions? Is that part of our marketing strategy? What about sales? Are we just focused on bottom line sales and how marketing contributes to that? What are we trying to do and accomplish in the marketing process? I think first, what I really want to make sure that we're clear on is it's neither of those first two things. It's not just awareness. It's not just eyeballs. We can have a million people see our advertisements, see our marketing campaigns, but if they're not the right people, if they're not people that are potentially going to purchase from us or take the action that we're asking them to take, then that's useless from a marketing perspective. So it's not just awareness, it's not just eyeballs. That's clear, I think, to everyone, right? We hate it when our marketing teams come and show us how many impressions we got. And we're like, well, what do we do with that? Or I can't take impressions to the bank. I can't take likes to the bank. I'm not so concerned about our social media engagement unless you can show me how that is an important metric or indicator for results that we're going to get. But sales is also not marketing. Sales and marketing are two completely different departments in the vast majority of organizations, as they should be. Marketing generates the interest. It generates the inquiries. It builds that awareness and gets the name out there so that people do stop in, call, fill out an online form, whatever the case may be, but they're not actually completing the sale. When I call or walk into a car dealership, the marketing might have gotten me there, but I haven't decided to buy that car yet for the most part. It's really the salesperson's job to finalize that deal. This happens with a lot of healthcare providers, whether you're in cosmetic surgery or you're a dentist or you're a counseling service. Someone is going to call you and they haven't decided yet if they're going to come to you or not. That decision is going to be made most likely on the phone. So your sales process is different from your marketing process in the vast majority of cases. This is also the case when we think about even something as simple as e-commerce. When we have campaigns running for e-commerce, we see clicks, we see people go and look at a product screen, they go to the checkout, they add to their cart, and they potentially complete a sale. But that only happens for a small percentage of the marketing campaigns. The vast majority of really effective e-commerce marketing is these broader campaigns that drive interest, awareness, and trust so that eventually people come to the site and make purchases. But it doesn't always happen from every single ad to have this kind of one-on-one final attribution tracking, something we'll discuss more in the data module, the data set. So when we're thinking about what successful marketing is, we're teeing it up. Right, we're getting people to the point where they want to make a call or an inquiry or stop in, but they're probably not at a point where they're ready to pull the trigger and make a decision. That has to happen through the final sales process. Even in an e-commerce example, the website and the product drive some of that final decision making. It's not just the marketing campaign. So what is marketing and how should we be thinking about it as executives? First off, the right message to the right person at the right time. Sounds so simple, but we don't actually think about how all of these factors come into place. The message depends on our audience. What are their pain points? What are they thinking? What are their desires? What do they actually want to get out of our services or the products that we're providing? And so if we don't understand who we're talking to, we can't create the right message for them. And as we'll talk more about in audiences and when we really think about messaging and strategic targeting, we have to segment and start to understand what the difference is between a mom who is looking for her child for services versus a mom who's looking for herself versus a father who's looking for services versus someone looking for a loved one versus looking for themselves. These different audiences are going to have different needs, different desires, sometimes different language. The different generations we're reaching, different locations around the country are going to require different messaging. So all of that stuff is incredibly important to an effective marketing campaign. And it's a lot of where the psychology of marketing comes in addition to tactics and strategy. But timing is also incredibly important. I always like to give the example that, if you want me to sell chocolates and flowers, I can run super effective marketing campaigns the first 2 weeks of February before Valentine's Day. I can sell a ridiculous amount of chocolate and flowers through additional marketing campaigns at that time. The second we hit February 15th, those results are going to fall off a cliff, right? The timing is not right. When do most retail brands make most of their revenue? It's during the last quarter of the year when you have Black Friday, you have Christmas sales. That drives a huge amount of volume within retail sales. So the best time to spend money in retail is Q4. And most organizations, most businesses, most verticals have some kind of seasonality. Like we see it in the behavioral health space quite a bit. During the summers, there's usually a large drop-off in services, especially for children and teens. Around the holidays, there's usually a drop-off in people seeking services. So even healthcare organizations have a lot of seasonality to when people are searching. So you should up your budget when you're in a high season, and you should look at reducing your budget when you're in a low season. Potentially, there's nuance there, which we'll talk about. But this piece is messaging, audience, timing, critical. Now, I just said that marketing is not just about eyeballs, and it's not actually sales. Those are two different things. So what in the heck is marketing? It is the process of building trust in a way that drives a desired action. And a desired action can be anything. It can be purchases. It could be a nonprofit looking to get people to sign up to volunteer for something, right? Some kind of commitment of time rather than money. But there is a desired action we want people to take. And those are usually at different stages within the marketing process. Sometimes I just want to get people to look at something. Sometimes I want them to click. Sometimes I want them to read or watch. Sometimes I want them to pick up the phone. Sometimes I want them to make a purchase. And again, my messaging will change based on where the audience is in the decision-making cycle, based on where they are from a timing perspective. If I'm thinking about retail, I might run ad campaigns for the Black Friday sales about to start next week. Well, my expected action for those individuals is just to become aware of the sale that's going to happen, or maybe bookmark their calendars. And so they come back to the website and start making some purchases on Black Friday, right? But then my Black Friday ads, the goal is going to be purchases. So we want to really think through, again, message, audience, and timing, getting desired action, but building trust. And so I'm going to spend a lot of time on this because this is the piece that most people miss. And if you don't understand how marketing is about building trust, you'll often make poor decisions within your marketing campaigns and your marketing funnels. People buy from people they trust. When you go to a restaurant, let's say you're in a new town. If you're like me, you travel all the time. I'm on the road 2 weeks out of 4 most months. And I like to try new things. I tend not to go to the same place. Some people love to go to the same place. Why? Because they know what they're going to get. They trust that this restaurant, they always order from Domino's, or they go to Starbucks, or they like Ruth's Chris. They know what they're going to get in every single location because of the consistency. There's trust there. If I don't want to go to the same place, maybe I want to check out somewhere local, something that I like to do, I'm going to look at the reviews online. Do they have at least 4 stars? If they don't have at least 4 stars, there's no way in hell I'm going to that restaurant. There's a process of trust that I'm using to take a look and see, do I really want to go here? The marketing campaigns have to do the same thing. How do I know that you're going to deliver on what you say you're going to deliver on? It might be easy to think of this from like the process of making a big purchase, which is buying a car. If I'm going to buy a car, it's a huge investment, and I want to make sure that that car is going to last a long time and that it provides all the things that I'm looking for in a car. Because it's such a big decision, I'm going to do a lot of research beforehand. I'm not going to watch a 30-second TV ad and make a decision to buy a car, right? I want to test drive that. I want to talk to someone else who has one. I want to talk to the sales rep at the car dealership, what they think about it compared to other models I might be looking at. The ads and your advertising campaigns can help build that trust. How reliable is this car? Does it have third-party awards? What is the safety rating? What do reviews look like for it online? What do mechanics say about this car in terms of how long it's going to last and what it does? Lots of different factors that I'm thinking about when I'm buying a car. All of them are meant and designed, or should be designed, to build trust. And this might be a little bit different because sometimes we think that marketing is supposed to be aspirational. It's supposed to speak to people's desires. This does sometimes happen, especially in segments like fashion. Fashion is very different. The trust you're building in fashion is, am I going to get a status symbol here? Am I going to look good, or am I going to look better? That's the trust that you're trying to build with a fashion brand, which is different from a car, which you're trying to talk about reliability or potentially a status symbol or how fast it goes. But I still have to convince our audience, related to their desire, that they're going to get what they want. So if I'm interested in a fast car, your marketing needs to convince me and build trust with me that you provide a very fast engine. And here's why, and here's all the specs, and here's how I can trust it, and here's how it compares to other potential cars I could purchase. It's all a trust building process. And so if you think about your marketing campaigns as how do we build trust to then get a desired action, you will be much more successful in the campaigns that your team or your organization is creating. Now, the last little bit I have here in parentheses, at scale. For most of us, most executives, we're looking at scale. Is there such a thing as marketing where it's one person going door to door and saying, hey, I started a new business. I'm the only person. I wear all the hats. I do all the things. You should come and check it out, right? That individual is marketing still because they're trying to drive awareness and get a desired action, but that's not scalable, right? An individual can only go around and knock on so many doors in a given day and still try to deliver services or create products at the same time. It's not a scalable process. And so I like to think about this, like when working with nonprofits, they have this tendency to try and reduce cost, often to their detriment. And so we'll say, well, why don't we just have the executive director go around and knock on doors and give people calls? Well, how long or how many people can you go and talk to if you're walking around a neighborhood? At best, you're going to get to 50, 60 people in an hour, right? If you're just spending 1 minute per door. Not very scalable. But if you spend $10 on a Facebook campaign, you can reach 1,000 people within a minute, for a very, very low cost versus how much you just paid that executive director to go around knocking on doors. So one method is scalable. Our Facebook campaigns are scalable. One method, not so much. Not to say that boots on the ground outreach doesn't work. It obviously does, but it is harder to scale than a digital marketing campaign, for example. So we always want to think about scalability from the executive level when we're talking about marketing. I might give this example of Nike for building trust. Look at those shoes. This was at the Olympics, and Nike's very smart. They've always done this. They work with a lot of very professional athletes. I mean, if you think about Michael Jordan's, right? But what's happening here is these are the best athletes in the world competing for the top spot in the world. Are they going to put something on their feet that is not going to help them? No way. And do these individuals likely know a lot more about what a good running shoe is versus me who just runs for exercise? Absolutely, right? I'm going to trust that individual to know a lot more about shoes than I will ever know. And so by them wearing it at the Olympics, Nike is getting phenomenal marketing representation because I trust the Olympic athletes to know what a good shoe is and to be unwilling to compromise by wearing a bad shoe. Compare this to an influencer campaign where perhaps I hire Michael Jordan to sell our washing machines. What does Michael Jordan know about washing machines? Absolutely nothing. So here's the mistake. Michael Jordan gets my attention. That's important. I need people's attention to grow awareness and to get people paying attention to our brand. But I have no respect or interest in Michael Jordan's opinions on a washing machine. So he's not able to build trust. They misunderstood marketing as just awareness, as just attention getting. They didn't understand marketing as a trust building process. And so that's why this important distinction exists in the way that you should be looking at marketing versus the way that most people often look at it. Another important fact that I always like to point out is there's a linear relationship between the cost and the amount of trust which needs to be built. So you take a very simple example. My daughter loves Skittles, loves them. And so if we're sitting there in the grocery store at the checkout lane and we see a new packet of Skittles, it's a new bunch of flavors, right? This one's purple, this one's green, whatever. It's going to cost me $1 to try those Skittles. There is almost no risk for me financially, in terms of time investment, whatever. If I don't like the Skittles, I'm going to throw them away. I could care less about the $1 I just spent on them. So because there's no risk, all Skittles really needs to do is have good placement at the checkout register, maybe eye-popping colors, packaging, right, that grabs our attention. And then I already have trust in the Skittles brand. Right? There is trust built because Skittles is great. It tastes really good. So they've already built trust through the quality of their products. Now they're asking me to try another one. I've got a certain level of trust there. It's $1. Yeah, I'll go for it, right? No problem. Now let's go back to our car example. Let's say that you have a car and let's say it's Skoda. So probably most of you are not familiar with Skoda. It's a brand that's common in Europe. If you saw an advertisement for a Skoda car here in the US, would you be willing to buy it versus a Lexus or a Toyota or a Mercedes or a Porsche? I guarantee you wouldn't, especially if it's the same cost as all of the other brands that you already know and trust. So if Skoda wanted me to try a car in this new market, they would have to do something very significant to build trust, and a lot of trust, because I'm going to be dropping $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 on this new car. You're asking a lot. It's the same thing if a nonprofit, we're asking people to volunteer. If I'm saying, hey, can you guys come in and just help out a little bit next week for an hour? I don't have to build a lot of trust there because you're not expecting too much from me. But if we go to a volunteer base and say, we need people to commit to one weekend day a month for the next 5 months, well, now that's a big commitment. Now I've really got to trust that I'm going to get value out of this and I'm going to be providing value to my community, that you're a good organization to work for or volunteer with, right? A lot more is expected there. So this linear relationship between cost and trust is super important to keep in mind. And you want to think about that in your healthcare services. We saw this really clearly in a lot of different healthcare verticals based on the rise in insurance deductibles. So when insurance was covering everything, when deductibles were like $0 to $500, it was very, very easy to get people in and try it. They didn't even shop around that much because they weren't paying anything. They didn't care. We still see this a lot of times in a Medicaid population because they're paying $0. They don't really care too much. They're not very discerning about where they're going to go because there's no risk to them involved besides potentially their time. Now you look at today where sometimes deductibles are as high as $10,000. That's a huge out-of-pocket cost for me. So I'm going to think very carefully about where I'm going. Am I going to get the result that I want from this particular provider? So that linear relationship is really important. And then, of course, also on the flip side here, marketing often has a branding problem, ironically. And here's a picture of a sleazy car salesman. This is what a lot of people think of when they think of marketing. Why? Why do people think of marketing and sales as sleazy, as dishonest? Well, because unfortunately, a lot of marketing campaigns are dishonest. They lie, they exaggerate, and this has hurt the reputation of marketing overall. When you see an advertisement and it says, this is the best product for XYZ, or we're going to provide you the best service compared to all of our competitors, people are pretty skeptical, and they have a right to be, because most people think that marketing is about buzzwords. They think it's about saying the right thing to the right person to get them to do what they want them to do without the trust piece. If you don't have trust, and trust is a reciprocal function. So as we talk about a lot in this training, marketing is a dependent variable. It's not independent. I am very happy to buy a coffee from Starbucks. I'm a little bit cautious about the coffee and service I'm going to get at the no-name coffee shop I just drove by, on the other side of the street. I really like Little Caesars pizza, but I'm not sure about this other local pizza joint that I've never heard of. Do I want to give it a risk? And again, these things are small, right? I'm paying $10 for a pizza. Who cares? But am I going to make that same decision when I'm purchasing a car, when I'm dropping a $10,000 deductible, when I'm committing to a healthcare provider for my cancer treatment that is life or death? These are significant decisions in our lives that we are going to be very skeptical of just a marketing or even a sales message on. We want to make sure that who we're talking to and where we're going is the right fit for us. So never lie or exaggerate. Just going back to the example we had from our introduction, here we've got 3 different providers all saying they're the top or number 1 provider in the state of Florida. I've already lost trust. And unfortunately, for this particular space, because I'm seeing this consistently when I search, I'm losing trust in the space as a whole. And I'm losing trust in marketing as a whole. I realize that people are just trying to say something that's not true to get my money in this case. That's a huge problem. So we have to overcome this a lot, and each space is different. I'm probably more likely to trust a cancer advertisement than I am to trust, unfortunately, a rehab advertisement, because most people are pretty familiar with the fact that a lot of drug rehab advertising is shady. There's a lot of bad operators within that space, where there aren't really any bad operators in the cancer treatment space, thankfully. So our level of trust changes based on the vertical and the service line. A very easy way to think about all of this is 10 people in the room. I always encourage an executive, when you think about a strategy, when you think about a tactic, when you think about an advertising campaign that you're running, think about 10 people in a room and how you would build trust in that room. So the first thing we want is to be in the right room. We look at this room, this is clearly some kind of office or business meeting. So if I'm a real estate agent, do I just want to walk into this room and start selling houses? Probably not the right place, right? So not the right time, not the right audience. Candy sales rep, probably not the right place for me to be. But is this a place where I could potentially sell computer software? Absolutely. This might be the right room for me to be in. So let's assume that we're in the right room and we've got 10 people in this room. Marketing is no different from face-to-face communication. If it wouldn't work in face-to-face communication, it's not going to work in a TV campaign. It's not going to work in an online campaign. What do we need to do to build trust with people in a room? Am I going to walk into a room and then just take my business card and show and say, "Hey everyone, my name's Nick. I work for Circle Social. Buy my stuff"? That's not going to build trust. Yet, again, so much of marketing is just people shouting really loudly. It's more than getting attention. We have to build trust. Same thing if I walk into that room and I just throw my business card everywhere, and I hand them out, and then I leave. Who am I? What does my company do? Why should I work with you? Right? It's not just about awareness. It's not just about eyeballs. How could I make sales in this room? I need to get to know people. What are their pain points? What are their problems? What are their desires? What do they want to get? And then how does my product or service fit into their lives? So now I have an idea of how to build value with these people and say, oh, okay, I understand what your concern is. So let's take addiction treatment as an easy one, because we know the numbers there. So about 10% of the populace at any given time struggles with addiction. So if I've got 10 people in this room, I've only got one potential patient, one potential client, one potential customer. And that's important to know from a numbers standpoint. There's 10 people in this room, but I can only potentially sell one of them. And my job is really to find that one person, right? Make sure I've got the right targeting, the right audience, and then be able to add value and help them understand that why our program is going to be a good fit for them. Now, switch up that scenario a little bit and imagine that you and another outreach representative were in the room at the same time, and you're for competing organizations. So let's stick with the addiction treatment example. So I'm selling addiction treatment services. This other person's selling addiction treatment services. We've only got one person in the room that we can market to. We're both competing for that person. So now it's a little bit different. I'm not able to just match their pain point or their desire to our services, I now have to convince them why our services are better than the other guys. You notice how that changes the dynamic. But what do I have to do? I have to build trust. I have to get them to trust me that we are the better fit than the other person. And so that could happen through relationships. It could happen through identifying the pain points and providing the right value in terms of differentiation. I could do things like bring in data points and show them results of our program versus a competitor. I could bring in an alumni patient, someone who had been through the program, who's willing to provide a testimonial for us. That's going to build more trust than if my competitor is not doing one of those things. But when you think about your marketing campaigns and you think about it in this context, I'm in this room, I've got a limited number of people to talk to. How do I face-to-face build trust? Then imagine that your competitors are in the room with you and you have to have this face-to-face conversation and you're having a direct competition with 2 or 3 or 4 other people. What are you saying that's going to work? If you can figure out that answer, that's what needs to be in your marketing campaigns. So how do you build trust? There's all these different ways we can do it, right? Familiarity is one way. It's the most simple. Frequency. If I've seen your organization 15, 20 times, I start to become comfortable. I start to feel like I know you, maybe even on an unconscious level. Whereas if I don't know the competitor, I'm probably going to trust the organization I'm more familiar with or the person's face who I've seen more. So this is one reason why it's so hard to enter a new market with established competition, just by the simple fact that competitors have been in the market a longer time and have more frequency and exposure. You're fighting an uphill battle as a new entrant. Expertise is huge. Can you prove to me you've got expertise? If I walk into that sales room and someone asks me like, well, what's great about your addiction treatment services? And I say, well, we just provide good care. That doesn't highlight a lot of expertise versus if my competitor comes in and says, okay, well, we've got cognitive behavioral therapy, we've got dialectical behavioral therapy, and what's really important for us is we have a peer recovery support program afterwards because the research shows blah, 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 right? I trust that person way more because they clearly have expertise. They know what they're talking about where I didn't. I just said we provide services. Third-party recognition is critical. Reviews, again, going back to our restaurant example, I'm going to go restaurants with 4 stars or more. And so if you're in a competitive market and all of your competitors have 4.5 stars and you've got 2.5, you can guess why you're struggling in that market. Awards are a big one, and those should be third-party awards, right? Objective. I'm not going to believe the fact that you rated yourself number 1 on your Google ad there. It doesn't go very far. But if you had in the Google ad, it said rated number 1 by Newsweek, rated number 1 by the Chamber of Commerce. Now, in that situation, I'm actually going to be a lot more interested. Accreditation, your JACO or UCARF, these various healthcare accreditations go, I wouldn't say a long way with consumers. They don't know who these organizations are, but having some kind of accreditation is better than none. And as we know, for a lot of our patients coming in, they're through referrals. And so other healthcare providers know. And so my referral source in the community knows what JACO is and might be something that they're going to be looking for on a hospital website or a provider website. How do I provide value to people? How do I make sure that they're understanding what we can give them? It could be a free sample. It could be a demonstration. It could be a test drive, like in a car. Some way that we're providing value to this individual. And it could be free information. It could be free advice. These things all work to provide value and build trust. Live demonstrations are obviously a fabulous, tried and true method of doing marketing and selling things for years. You think of your typical Tide commercial. Here's the competitor, here's us, you can see the result. Doing that as a live demonstration. Here's how it works. This is exactly what you're going to get. That builds trust. It gives me confidence that I know that I'm getting what I want or getting what I need. Results, outcomes in healthcare is a great one. Johns Hopkins does a great job of this. If you look at most of their service lines, they will provide on their website the outcomes or the positive outcomes for that particular procedure or that particular treatment. That goes a long way because it shows that you know what you're doing in terms of tracking success and not success. It shows that you're honest, right? Even if it's only a 5% success rate, I'm really happy to know that because it tells me that you're going to be open and honest with me, so I understand the risks of a particular procedure. So what results does your program get? And again, coming from third-party data is ideal here. If you're coming up with your own results, that's not as reliable. Again, there's a lot of skepticism around marketing, so we have to be careful there. Free trials and discounts. This is, again, a tried and true method that a lot of organizations have used for a long time. If I'm Skittles and I want to get people to try my new type of Skittles, I might have a supermarket hand them out. Right? That's why we see food trials at the supermarkets on Saturdays. Because if I try it, yeah, that costs me money as an organization, but that's really a marketing dollar, is what it is. My food cost is the marketing dollar, because if people like it, they're going to come back. We need to think the same way as healthcare providers, because marketing's, again, this dependent variable. If we can get people in, if we get people to try it, that's going to spread a word of mouth. Maybe we'll have repeat customers if I'm a dental organization or a physical therapist or a chiropractor. I need repeat customers. I need people who are willing to come back. Maybe I'm a med spa. I can get them to come in and try different services as they grow to trust us. Hospital systems are really similar. If I go to the hospital and have a good experience, I'm willing to go through that hospital for other related services or contact the hospital for referrals. On top of that, we get recommendations of family, we get recommendations of friends. So getting people in and having them have some kind of trial is a great way. Coupons or that's actually how coupons work, right? Give people a discounted offer, it's part of your marketing cost. And then if your product is good enough or it's better than the competitors or it meets the needs and the desires of your potential customer base, then now you've got a customer for life. And the lifetime value of that customer is totally worth the 20% discount you gave on an initial product. Now in healthcare, we have to be really careful with that. There are a lot of obviously laws around kickbacks. We have our Stark laws. We have all these concerns around especially federally funded programming. In general, we want to try to avoid free trials and discounts, but just mention it here so that you can think about it from the trust building aspect and how it's important. And then finally, guarantees. When I go to a Walmart and buy a TV, why am I not too concerned about maybe trying a new TV brand? Because I can bring it back within 30 days and I lose nothing. It's a little annoying, but at the end of the day, if I want a really good TV, I'm probably going to go to a brand I know, like a Samsung. I'm like, okay, I know and I trust this brand. They have good warranties. I know that they're not going to break down. But here's this cheapo tiny Chinese brand. It's a Xiaomi, and maybe it's worth trying because I know I've got this guarantee window. So a guarantee builds trust because, again, there's that linear relationship between risk, which is really your cost, and how much trust you have to build. And so if I've got this free 30-day window, I don't have to build a lot of trust to get people to try or potentially purchase our product. Warranties reduce my risk. And so I'm more willing to give something to try or maybe go out on a limb with a newer product. And so as we think about this from a healthcare perspective, how can we de-risk the situation for the potential patient? Whether that is cost, whether that's time, whether that's guarantees that we can provide them. So sometimes we'll see a surgeon or a treatment provider say, hey, if there's complications, we will help you out for free. Or if our treatment doesn't work, come back and we'll give it to you again and make sure that it works this time. Some kind of guarantee goes a long way with families and patients. So just wrapping things up as we think about what works in marketing, it's all about a trust building process, right message, right person or audience, right time. And then how do we think about our campaigns as if we were face-to-face, as if we were in a room with 10 people and we have to convince them that our product is or service is the best versus, or the right fit. It doesn't have to be the best, but the right fit for that individual compared to the other outreach reps that are in the room with us trying to convince them of the same thing. If we can't answer that question about 10 people in a room face-to-face, then something's wrong with our marketing campaign. So hopefully that helps you understand and moves us away from the sales obsession, because that's not right. That's not what marketing is. Moves us away from just impressions and just awareness, which again, I can't take to the bank. Right? All these things have to be connected, but ultimately it's a trust building process that drives a desired action at scale.